Hello, my dear. Once again, as we usually do our weekly meetings from Peace, Spiritual Center for Peace, we have the pleasure today to show a little bit about the Medium's book. But before starting our normal meeting with this information from Munir Gariba, we do our opening prayer, okay? So please follow me in thoughts. Beloved Master Jesus, our dear spiritual friends, spiritual benefactors, once again, we are here gathered in your name, asking your blessing for each one of us, that we are joining our thoughts towards the same aim, the same objective, that is to learn and put in practice Allan Kardec and spiritual guides' teachings. So, dear Master Jesus, may your blessing be with our dear friends that will join us later, the ones that are working not able to join us today, but the most important is we are together, unifying our love and thoughts for this world that is in the phase of transition. And we have so much things to learn and also to put in practice from our hearts around us. With your permission, dear Lord, may your blessing be with Munir that will expose for us. And we ask your permission to start our meeting today. So be it. Amen.
Morning, everyone. I've prepared. Yeah, can I start now? Yeah.
Yes.
I've prepared some slides for us to celebrate the 106th year of the Medium's book. The Medium's book, actually, this Friday is is going to be 160 years since Kardec presented it to the world. I've put here all the 5 books, the Pentateuch of the Spiritist codification. First one, there was the Spirit's book. It was published in 1857 for the first time, and the Spirit's book is basically about the spirit world and the spirits and survival after death. So Kardec, he was skeptical about spirits in the beginning, until he finally started to study the spirit manifestations, the phenomenon of the turning tables, and then he realized it was a serious matter. And then he used also his knowledge, all his background, to do a methodic study about the phenomena. That was very common at that time, mid to late 19th century. And after that, he said, well, there's a spirit world, spirits are everywhere here and in a spirit dimension, but life here on earth is also part of this world. That goes beyond our perceptions, it goes beyond our knowledge at the moment. So he said, and communication is a natural part of life. Mankind always communicated. From cavemen, they used to communicate through sounds and pictures, till nowadays where we have very sophisticated means of communicating. And he said, well, spirits are, and we are the same. We are just in a different condition that changes constantly. We are returning to the spirit world, spirits are coming to the physical world. So it's just natural that the 2 worlds, as it were, can communicate. And then the Medium's book came actually to study communication between spirits, the spiritual world, and the physical world. And until now, I don't know, Netflix has just released a video about, it's called Survival. That was on the 6th of January. And it's about, as the name says, survival. And they show, for instance, in the first episode, it's about near-death experience. Then they talk about mediumship, a lot about mediumship. and then also about proof of reincarnation. And I say I was happy and sad at the same time, because realized that people are still making the same mistakes they used to make at Kardec's time. They see things in a supernatural way. They see things, and especially communication with the spirits, as a very limited and selfish way of communicating. Most people are just interested in communicating with their loved ones who return to spirit. And what I realized was that there was a lack of the moral conditions for a good communication. Just like in any profession, we can use the knowledge, our training, to do good things and bad things, to be ethical or not, like everywhere. But that wasn't actually talked very much about this on this series. So that's why the Gospel according to Spiritism came right after the medium's book. He said, well, everyone is a medium, some with mediumship very developed, as it were, some not. But communication with spirits is natural. And but we need a guidance, actually, moral guidance for that. What makes a good medium and a bad medium? So came the in 1864, the Gospel. The moral of Jesus, the Christian moral, is the guidance for us to develop ourselves to become better instruments. And after that came in 1865, Heaven and Hell. And Heaven and Hell was actually to show us the good and the bad consequences of our moral behavior. And the last one came to talk more about physical world and material world, not just the material world that we have in our physical dense world, but also to show us that the universe is made up of fluids and spiritual principle. So with these 5 books, Kardec covered all the important aspects about we, spirits, and the 2 sides of this life in the universe. And going to the medium's book, which is our purpose today, the book was, as I said, was launched on the 15th of January, 1861. This was the first edition. Before that, Kardec, seeing that mediums worked in different ways, and there wasn't actually much knowledge. There was a lot of confusion regarding mediumship. He published in 1858 a book which was the predecessor of the medium's book. It was a much smaller book. It was called Practical Introduction about Spirits Manifestations. And that was in 58. So he decided to expand this, and he turned into the medium's book. The book also was prepared just like the spirits book with the help of spirits. It had initially 34 chapters. It was divided in 2 parts. First part, 6 chapters, and then the second part with 28 parts. And the first chapter was a 90-page glossary with more than 200 words where Kardec explained the meaning, the context, how to use it, what it meant, and everything else. We can see here, these are the 4 pages of the glossary of this first edition. So we see the first 6 chapters here, and then the other 28 chapters. It had about 490 pages in the format that was published at that time. And what is interesting is after the glossary, the second chapter is, the title is there, are there spirits? So Kardec started by asking, are there spirits? If there are spirits, we can communicate with them because they are just human beings like ourselves. If there aren't spirits, so there's no purpose in establishing communication. So it's very, very interesting that he starts this, basically he starts the book itself with this second chapter. And then in the same year, November 1861, came the second and final edition. So the book was revised, some chapters were added, and the information was actually worked with the help of spirits. It wasn't something that just Kardec did. The spirits helped a lot in this. So now the book is organized with 4 chapters in part 1 and 32 chapters in the second part. So we see that we have 2 more chapters added to this second edition. And the glossary now is much shorter. We had 90 pages in the first edition. Now it has, I think, it's about 15 pages or something like that. And it is the last chapter. And this is the final edition. I mean, the edition we have nowadays is basically this second edition. So we see here the changes. This is the glossary of the second edition. And it has 4 chapters, part 1 and then part 2 with 32 chapters. This one has 515 pages altogether. Yeah. And then in 1876, the book was published in English. The translation was carried out by Anna Blackwell. I found a picture of Anna Blackwell here. So it's about 15 years later, the book was published in English. As far as I remember, I think Anna Blackwell was a close friend to Kardec. And this is the book that I used the one from 2009. It's the first edition of the International Spiritist Council. And we see that it hasn't changed. The first chapter with the first part with 4 chapters, and the second part with 32 chapters, ending with the Spiritist's glossary there. And the first part is more of an introduction of laying the ground, the basis for the second chapter with the practical aspect of the medium book. The medium's book is a guide. It's a guide for those who want to work with mediumship, not just mediums, but also indoctrinators and whoever wants to learn about mediumship. And the important contribution, apart from all the other aspects that it has contributed with, is actually to take it from the realm of the fantastic, magical, to show that there is a science behind that. We need knowledge, we need to learn how to do things, and it doesn't happen out of the blue. It's part of nature, not just the nature that manifests itself in our physical world, but laws that are the result of the creation. And these laws manifest themselves in the spirit world, regarding spirits, regarding the communication in a special way. And that's what Kardec did. He went and studied basically all aspects of mediumship. And there is one chapter 20 that I want to call the attention, because as I said, you're watching the Netflix, it's a kind of documentary about life after death. In chapter 20, the medium's moral influence. This is something that wasn't talked about as far as I could see in this documentary, relating mediumship to moral influence of the medium, of the spirits, and how important it is in this process. And nowadays, this edition, this 2009 edition, it brings also the original introduction by Anna Blackwell, isn't here, sorry. And it brings in the introduction by Allan Kardec in 1861. And the first paragraph basically summarizes what the book is all about. And I'll read it to us. Each and every day, experience confirms our opinion that the difficulties and disappointments encountered in the practice of Spiritism result from ignorance of the science's principle. Here, as I said to you, Kardec went and studied mediumship as a science, not as a supernatural phenomenon. We are happy to notice that the work we have done to protect the adherents against the pitfalls of being a novitiate has been effective, and that many have avoided them by reading this book. So I think this summarizes what the book came for, to help people to understand, to learn the science or scientific principles of mediumship, and also to a guide to good practice of mediumship. So I'll stop here and open for discussion. I think it's important that we discuss a little bit about the book. Thank you.
Can I just ask again? It's funny, after all this time, I never thought that the medium's book came between the Spirit's book and the Gospel according to Spiritism. And I just wanted you to highlight why was that done, and why it is so important. You would imagine it was Spirit's book, then the Gospel, and then he would expand.
Yeah, because if you remember, at that time, mediumship was actually, or mediumistic phenomena was happening everywhere. They were fashionable, as it were, the turning tables. And so what Kardec did, the first thing he did when he went to study what was going on, he realized that the spirits were there, there was a new dimension, and he went to study that and presented the results in the Spirit's book. And then came the need to establish a guide to work with mediumship, because turning table and materialization, whatever, that was all mediumistic manifestation. So he decided that it was very important to study that. And obviously that was with the guidance of the spirits. All these books, they were actually, they weren't the result of just Kardec's work, actually. They were the result of the work of spirits bringing the information to Kardec. And because there were mediums everywhere and manifestations were all there, and he realized they didn't know exactly what to do. So he wrote a manual, a guide for people to work with mediumship based on the studies, scientific studies of the all the phenomena, mediumistic phenomena that were taking place. And if we go through the second part of the book, we see that he covers all aspects of mediumship. And so he established that. As I said, in 1958, 1 year after the Spirits book was first published, he published that short guide for mediumistic practice, or practice of mediumship. And the medium's book was actually the result of starting from that shorter guide and publishing a book with a full information and guidance on mediumship. And then the moral, the moral laws and the Christian moral presented in the gospel. So that would guide mediums, and that would guide our relationship here on earth, and show that the spirits to progress, just as mediumship to be fully developed and in the proper sense, the medium or the person has to work him or herself morally. And the guide for that is the gospel. And obviously, what happens? I mean, what happens if I lead a certain kind of life that has nothing to do with a Christian moral? and then comes heaven and hell to show the people who went back to spirit, they coming and telling their stories. So we realize how important the previous book is. It's important for mediumship or for the practice of mediumship, but it's also important for ourselves in our daily lives. I don't know if it's clear.
Yeah, to me it is, yeah.
I was thinking the importance that Kardec came, realized the interference of the spiritual world in the material world, put this in a combination in these books, and gave to us the guidelines, the gate, the door to understand and combat materialism. Because at that time of Kardec, the psychology in the universities, they were aware about spirituality. So that it was easy as well to spread this information all over the world. As French was well spoken all over the world, Paris or French was something very important for kings and queens or whatever, even in Brazil, that was easy to spread. So this information that immediately 8 years after Anne Blackwell translate the Medium's book was very nice indeed for this country here, United Kingdom. Janet knows better than me regarding spiritualism, that time was really coming out. Researchers and later on in 88, the Society of Psychical Researching mediums, doing loads of papers that is already nowadays a lot of scientists, they are looking for in Cambridge, in the branch of SPR there. So Kardec was totally updated in his time, bringing this, the courage to carry on and work together with the spiritual benefactors and brought this information for us. That is something, the most important thing that happened this century ago, no? More than a century ago. That is, I'd like to listen, Janet, if she wants to, or more questions. Janet and Munir, they are keen to know.
I didn't understand properly.
If someone wants to do a question, you and Munir knows a lot about mediumship, why we have this book that we have to study, why mediumship is so important, but we have to be careful not to ask the Netflix without moral part, because you can do mediumship in a garden, talk with someone, blah, blah, blah. But as a spiritist mediumship or mediumship with Jesus, we have the moral side strongly recommended, and be careful because we are dealing with beings. They don't have bodies, but they are beings. They can be good, they can be nasty, they can damage, they can help to create better life for us. There's a lot of things that is interacting. Yeah? We are surrounded by spirits 24/7, isn't it?
I'd like to say something. We shouldn't fall into the pitfall of thinking that, oh, I can only be a good medium or a morally developed medium if I'm a Christian. No. Jesus is the model, is the guide, but he had also the help to reach other people in other parts of the world. And the moral laws, as we see in the Spirit's book, they are part of the creation. It wasn't something established for the Christians or for the Muslims or for the Buddhists or whatever, no. And then Jesus, with his degree of evolution, he showed us these moral laws in his way. But he had the help of many people in other parts of the world to talk about the same moral laws in a slightly different context. It's just like I usually compare with foods. We need to eat to nourish our body. But if we go to certain parts of the world, we eat food with different spices, slightly different vegetables, and so on. But still, we get the nourishment that we need. And I see this moral laws. They manifest themselves in any culture through different people. And for us Christian, in being Jesus, the governor of the planet, he is the highest level spirit that we've ever seen on this planet. But it doesn't mean that we haven't got other very evolved spirits helping him. So if I'm in a Muslim country and I know very well the beauty of the Quran, and I want to use that to develop myself morally, it's beautiful. And we can use to develop our mediumship in these countries. We can use the medium's book, also read the gospel, but also follow the guidance of our religion to be a better person. This is an important thing. And we know that some people don't have a religion, but they already know for nature, for life itself, that there are moral laws behind, that we should behave in certain ways. And this person is also developing him or herself. They are using the knowledge that it is around to develop themselves. So Kardec was in a Christian country, and we know that the gospel is the book about the moral teachings of Jesus, who is the highest spirit in the spiritual rank that we have here on our planet. But as I said, we have the guidance of other spirits as well about the same moral laws presented in a slightly different contexts, but also helps us to develop.
I would like to make a comment here because I lived in Brazil for 30 years, and the last 10 years of that 30, I found the Spiritist teachings, and I studied profoundly those 10 years without knowing that I was going to have to come back to England. But that is what happened. And when I arrived back here, I was amazed to see that there were lots of mediums, and they all charged for the communications and everything. And then I found out also that Anna Blackwell had translated the Spirit's book and the Medium's book, and these were at that time, that is the 1980s, these two books were able to be bought in bookshops here because they were being published. But when I started talking to mediums and asking them why they charged for the mediumship, I was surprised at their answer, because they said, oh, well, if God has given me this faculty, then he must expect me to use it. Well, if I'm going to use it, I still have to pay my rent and buy my food, and I have to have money. So I have to charge, because they felt that they needed to practice the mediumship 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And unfortunately, with the two books, the Spirit's book and the Medium's book, it had not come to their notice that that wasn't how we should be working with the faculty, etc. And I was astounded at their interpretation. And they found it very difficult. And even until today, some mediums in this country find it very difficult to accept that the moral aspect of our lives is the most important, and to receive genuine communications. And not only that, because they specialize, as Munir mentioned, in receiving messages from their own family members that had recently passed back to spirit. They didn't realize the depths of mediumship and what it's really for, because it is to teach us the morality of Jesus's way and everything. It's also to protect us, because if we are not conscious that there are good and bad spirits, just as there are good and bad people, any spirit that manifests, they say, oh, that's your guide, and we'll follow whatever that spirit has to say. They are so, what's the word I want? Gullible, terribly gullible. And obviously, you choose your friends and you decide when people are reliable or when they are happy to do not very good things. But people don't seem to have that understanding that spirits are us and we are spirit, as it were. To them, the physical life is totally separate from the spiritual life. They're two completely different things. So until people can manage to understand that, and in a country where the religious aspect has been considered of recent times, can be disposed of, I would put it like that, so that they've landed themselves in lots of very serious and difficult ways. Munir mentioned about being obsessed, where certain spirits will cling to the medium because they have an affinity. So in other words, people that we would consider normally bad people, they can be mediums, and their accompaniments will be in accordance with their moral stance in life, so that you get help to do all the bad things from the spiritual world just as much as you can get help to do all the good things. So there's a great deal of need to really properly understand the faculty for our own personal benefits, but for the benefit of society. I've said enough, go on.
Yeah, Janice, you just said something very interesting, because if we realize, using the situations that we have nowadays, Kardec was the first one to show us the need to know the spirits who are communicating through us. And it's the same we have nowadays with the fake news. Depending on the spirits that come to say something, not because they are in the spiritual world, they know everything and they have good intention. We may fall victim of fake news from the spirits, and Kardec was the first one to point that out in the Medium's book. You know, don't trust every spirit that comes and communicates. You know, as he said, we have good spirits and bad spirits. Just the continuation. I mean, whoever we were here, we continue to be in the spiritual world, and vice versa.
Can I ask a question that it might be a bit difficult to answer? There are different answers, but what is the aim of mediumship? Why do we do it? Is it for the medium to improve? Is it various reasons? Is it to send a message? What would you think is the main goal of this communication?
Who's going to answer?
Yeah. Do you want to answer, Janet?
Well, I mean, if we look at our planet in general terms, the morality, we as spiritists, we come to realize that all the time we are incarnate, we are physical people for certain periods of time, and then we go back to being spirit, and then we come back again, and we're always coming back to the physical side, because this is where we learn the difference between good and bad, right and wrong. And this is a whole process of evolution, because we are created in the human form as a blank piece of paper. And we are given free will, and we have to write our own book of life. And it will take us many, many millions of years, because the end goal is to become perfect. And I would even call attention to people, as I have been doing recently, to the fact that Jesus, as Munir has said, is the only 100% perfect person who's ever inhabited in a physical form on this planet. He is now the governor of this planet. He's trying to teach us and show us how to reach this ultimate goal of perfection. Now I've lost my thought. Carry on, Munir, please.
Okay. I think that the main part, whatever happens in our life here in the spiritual world, is for our progress.
Yeah.
Everything, including our faculties, they are for our progress, including mediumship. Mediumship, the communication, as I said before, the communication with spirits is going to be, is going to improve with time. In more evolved worlds, this communication is constant all the time. So we are developing, moving towards that situation. So this is just the beginning. But just like any other faculty, it's first for the development, moral development of the medium, because he's got tools to do some good work if he can. And just like intelligence, just like financial resources that we get in life, just like anything, whatever happens in our life here is for us to benefit from the progress, first our progress and then progress of those around us that he can provide us. Here in the spirit world, the universe, everything in the universe is progressing constantly. This is the aim, to progress. I'll tell just very briefly, I'll tell a story. I've heard this a couple of times. I think I read once in the book, and then someone told the story the other day. It's about this person. He was in the spirit world. He realized how huge the debts, as it were, he had. And then he was praying to Jesus to reincarnate. And then he said, now I realize the tremendous debt that I have. So I would like to be born without my arms, without my leg, with a brain damage, with problems in the heart, everywhere. And then he was going to be a vegetable here and there. And then his spiritual guide, he came to him and said, well, you've asked all that, but that actually happens, you won't be able to do much. It's too much, he said, for one incarnation. We'll give you just one instrument for you to diminish your debts in this incarnation, and it's going to be mediumship. You'll be born normal person, no problems, but you'll be a medium. Through your mediumship, you'll be able to do some work to diminish the debts that you have. And he said, oh, okay, wonderful. And then he reincarnated, and after a while, he was working in the Spiritist Center. But then he had a comfortable material life, and little by little, he started to neglect the work in the Spiritist Center. And they said, well, we have few mediums nowadays, and the work has to be done, and we count on you. Oh, tonight I can't because I have this and I have that. So in the end, the mediumship, his mediumship was for his own benefit, for his own progress. And then he neglected that. So in the end, he ended up with the same debt, if not more, when he returned to spirit. And this is a true story. This actually happened in Brazil, I think in Minas Gerais. This person asked, all sorts of physical problems to diminish his debts, and they gave him just mediumship for him to work in the benefit of himself and others. And he didn't. When he felt himself very comfortable in life with the financial resources and so on, he gave up the faculty, as it were. So if I answered your question, it's first for our own progress through the help that we can offer with our mediumship. And as was said before, it's not for us to find financial resources. We should have our profession first and use the spare time that we have to work on mediumship. That was a piece of advice that I think Chico Xavier gave to the famous Brazilian medium, gave to people. First, you go and work, and through your work, you get enough for your needs, physical needs, and then you go and work for mediumship. Don't make money out of mediumship. And unfortunately, as Janet said, people charge. And watching this series in Netflix, I realized how things haven't changed much in the spiritualist movement. We see people doing exactly what they used to do at Kardec's time, charging and opening themselves for mystification. Because if you charge, you have to offer something that convinces people. And if you don't get something from spirit, and Kardec talks about that, the pitfalls in the medium's book as well. So he gave with the help of spirits, he gave a complete guide in mediumship. I have never come across a better guide than the medium's book or the exercise of mediumship. And even those who don't have the faculty very, very developed, I think it's the guidance for each one of us with the faculties that we have, wherever they are.
Questions? Michael, you can do your question if you have. Tati, Rosie, Leo, Adriano, even me.
I think I would like to ask something. Well, I think you said, Munir, that a huge problem is when we start the mediumship or anything that we are doing with material self-interest. Like the medium start the mediumship, but he already has the end in mind. Like, I want this, I want to get this result. And that's why he makes his way to get to that point, right? So that's really different from what Allan Kardec did, because he was just curious about what that would be or how it worked. He didn't have any self-interest in, at least a material self-interest in that. You already said that we mediums should not charge for that. but like in a spirit center, among other people, some, let's say, inner problems may arise. Like we can um think that the medium might think that he's a little bit better than other people, like puts more value in himself than in others people work or something like that. Would you have any piece of advice for that problem that is not so visible, like some problem that is inside, that's around our thoughts, but we cannot really measure if I'm being like selfish or not? Would you have some piece of that advice for that?
Yeah, I think the piece of advice is the one that is in the gospel that Jesus said, you know, he who wants to be the first should come last. I think the mediums, realizing that mediumship, at least at this level, is for our own improvement. That means we were giving the opportunity of having this faculty to improve ourselves, because our debts must be very, very huge. So with this instrument, if we dedicate ourselves, I think we have this opportunity to help others and not think that we receive the blessing because we are better than other people. It's just like intelligence, it's just like material resources, it's just like all the faculties that we have. Some people are very good at talking to people and expressing themselves. This can also help people. They can use for the benefit, or they can convince people of going to crime, for instance. So mediumship is the same thing. It's an opportunity that we have to improve ourselves through the service that we offer to others. Diminish their suffering, enlighten them, show them a different perspective of life, and helping families. You see families that lost their children, and I think this is the worst situation for parents who lost their children at early ages, and they want a word of comfort, and the medium sometimes can offer that. But you have to give your time through that faculty that was given to you to help people, for instance. Also people in the spirit world who find themselves confused and undergoing terrible suffering and so on. And just one thing, the mediumistic faculty is organic. Our body, our organic, the organization of our organic body actually provides us with the conditions to have an open faculty, or to restrict this faculty in ourselves. But of course, just like any other situation that we have in life, we face in life, our body has been prepared for the kind of program that we have for ourselves in here on earth. So when we come with the right body for that, including the body with the predisposition to openly develop the faculty of mediumship. As Kardec said, we all have mediumship. It's a natural part of life, but our organic body, it provides the tools for some people to have these more ostensibly, this faculty to be more openly at the service of that person. So it's organic, and some people don't, because their kind of tasks are different. They perhaps don't require this mediumship to be at this level at this moment. But don't forget, our body also evolves as we spirits evolve. If spirits evolve, we know that our thoughts, we as a spark, a spiritual spark, our thoughts, our behaviors, they manifest themselves in fluids and the material body. So we promote the evolution, little by little, the evolution of our physical body. So next generations will come slightly different and so on. And mediumship in the future, I believe, will be naturally developed in the bodies that will be at our disposal in the future, because we've reached as a spirits a point where the body needs to offer us more faculties than the ones we have nowadays. When we compare ourselves to cavemen, we see that the bodies have changed a lot. They will carry on changing because we are progressing and we change the physical world around us, be it this physical world in this dense material world here and in the spirit world as well.
I am remembering we have Dr. Sergio Felipe de Oliveira doing a lot of research regarding mediumship and pineal gland and the crystals of apatita and the different moments. He did a nice job. I don't know if he stopped or not, but at least he was proving how the mediumship works in an organic way in certain mediums that develop better this part of the it's something that is a psychiatrist doctor working and doing that we, of course, he came and of course make all this information here in a scientific way, prove it about mediumship. That still people are, I think, researching about. That is very nice indeed. I only make this point.
I just wanted to say something when Munir was saying about this. It's very interesting that we are born with this physical ability. I often compare the mediumship with like people who have an ear for music. Some people have it or they don't have it, you know, and we still might not have been able to find the gene, let's call it for that. But you know, if you're born like that, you can play good music, you can play bad music, and you can develop it or not. You know, I have from my 3 children, one of them has, and he doesn't want to develop that. He doesn't want to go that way. But I noticed recently how many musicians say that that the link between music and mediumship, that the music just comes to them. And Paul Mccartney, he's been saying, he can't say it openly in this country because people will think he's crazy. But he said, I heard the music just came to me. Yesterday is about his mother dying. And he said, the music just came to me. Let it be. He said it was his mother. He said, I saw her in a dream. I was having lots of trouble. And she told me, just let it be. And the whole music came to me. He said, I don't know where it came from, but I didn't do it. So it's amazing that. So I'm just saying that we can see that mediumship works at various levels. It's not only within a spiritist center in trance.
Yeah, Leo. Everyone can learn how to play an instrument, can learn, you know, the basics of music, but very few will be a bright musician. It's the same with mediumship. We all have a certain degree of mediumship. We get some intuition, where some of us can be aware, you know, during our dreams, we can leave the body and be aware of the surrounding and wake up and remember. So this is all part of mediumship, a much broader faculty. But very few will be that kind of medium that is in constant contact and seeing spirits and you know, as part of a daily life. Some mediums don't even drive a car because they can tell when there's a spirit crossing the road or when there's you know, someone in the physical body. So they say, well, to avoid problems, you know, I won't drive a car or, you know, any vehicle, because they might, you know, run over someone thinking, oh, it's just a spirit, and so it's the same. It's the same with the mediumship, just like any faculty. Some people have it in a higher degree than other people. We all can learn. We all can practice with the degree that we have it, but very few will be that bright musician like, you know, Paul McCartney, be able to receive. He's a bright musician, and he also has received these lyrics from his mother.
I'd like to also mention that We have the pineal gland in the center of our brain, which is very often called the third eye, because it is with here just above the nose. If you go straight into the brain, and we have the pineal chakra, which is the one that comes right out at the top, and they meet together here. And the pineal gland is the point of being able to have contact with the physical world, with the spiritual world. But we must remember as well that every incarnation, we come with a pre-planned plan. Each incarnation has a particular purpose, so that it's not every incarnation that we will be needing to activate that pineal gland, to either use it from us outwards, as it were, or to be a receptor. And Chico also mentioned the fact that the person that has a high degree of available, the faculty very much available to the spiritual world, that this is a debt that we are able to pay, as it were. It's a task, and mediums like Chico, like Divaldo, and many other people, that the faculty seems to almost dominate their physical life. It's very strong, but this is, it has the purpose of allowing us to progress and pay back a lot of debts from the past. So it's a very, I would even say heavy, although it can be very beautiful. It's quite a big task if you are a medium like Chico Xavier was, for example. Fortunately, he could understand the purpose of this faculty, and he was happy to devote his whole incarnation around the faculty. But before he began to be really productive for everybody with the faculty, he went through a phase in his early life that was very disturbed. As a child, he had very unfortunate circumstances in the fact that his mother died, and his stepmother was very cruel to him, physically cruel. And he could go into the garden under his favorite tree, and he was able to talk to his mother to receive help and guidance. But he had assumed, before he physically incarnated again, the task of being a medium to the extent that he did become, to help others, because this was a debt that he had to pay to recover himself. Because any faculty, we can use it for good or for bad, one thing and another. So it's very important. How can I say this? We have to respect the faculty, and we can, in an incarnation, we can eradicate an enormous quantity of our past debts if we cultivate and utilize our faculty in the correct manner and at sacrifice to our own incarnation by helping others. Remember, the Spiritist always says, without charity, there's no salvation. A lot of people in countries say, oh, I want to be a medium. Oh, well, then you can develop the mediumship. It is possible to forcibly open this faculty, but I personally would not advise it, because you obviously haven't got the right intimate knowledge of its real purpose, what it's for. And this is why lots of people do force these things, but they cannot reach the high levels, because it's for us to receive the best Christian teachings from the spiritual world for our own personal progress. And if we are happy just to receive your relatives and other people's relatives they've just passed on, it can, in many instances, help them a bit, but it's a different kind of mediumship, and it's on a very different level. In Spiritism, we learn in such detail, really, about this faculty, which is so important and can be so very, very blessed. Okay.
Adrian, what do you think? It's so nice that you can carry on, but
That's up to you guys.
I think we can close, and if you can carry on talking, we can talk later after the final prayer. What? No? At an informal way, because you are recording, so I have to stop, I think. Okay.